You know, when you think of the Middle East, your mind probably jumps straight to oil. But right now, there's a totally different kind of gold rush going on, and it's set to define the future of technology. We're not talking about black gold. We're talking about the digital infrastructure that powers artificial intelligence. This is the race for data center dominance.
And the prize? Well, it's absolutely staggering. We are looking at an estimated $18 to $22 billion in investment just for AI-specific data centers. And all of that is expected to pour into the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, by 2032. I mean, that's the kind of money that doesn't just build a few buildings, it completely reshapes economies.
So it really begs the question, right? In a competition this fierce, with stakes this incredibly high, who's actually set up to win this new AI gold rush? Well, as it turns out, the answer is a whole lot more complicated than you might think. To really get who has the inside track, you first have to understand what it even takes to win. And it all boils down to mastering what insiders call the hyperscale trifecta. 3 critical, totally non-negotiable hurdles that every single competitor has to clear to even have a chance.
And here they are. First up, power. And we are talking a ton of it. Second, fiber. You know, the digital superhighways connecting the rest of the planet. And third, zoning, which is basically getting the legal green light to build at an insane speed. Seriously, if you get just one of these wrong, you're pretty much out of the race. So let's break each one down.
Okay, so when we say power, we're not talking about enough juice for a factory. We mean securing 500 megawatt blocks of energy, or even more, all locked in on long-term contracts. This right here is the single biggest bottleneck. It's the reason a lot of these huge projects just completely stall out in places like Europe and the US.
Next up is fiber. And this is all about location, location, location. How close are you to the subsea cable landing stations? You know, the actual spots where the global internet physically comes ashore. That proximity is everything, and we're talking about a matter of meters. Every single extra meter adds latency, and in the world of AI, speed is literally the only thing that matters.
And finally, zoning. Look, you could have all the power and fiber in the world, but if it takes you 2 years to get a building permit because the laws were written for, I don't know, old warehouses, you've already lost. The winners here are the ones creating legal frameworks that let these specialized facilities get built and get built fast.
All right, so now we get the rules of the game, that trifecta. Let's take a look at the players. How are the key nations in the GCC trying to master these 3 hurdles? What's so fascinating is that each one of them is taking a completely different approach. If you look here, you can really see the different playbooks starting to take shape. You've got Saudi Arabia and Qatar coming in hot with these massive power allocations. Then there's the UAE, basically creating exclusive power zones. But check out Qatar. Their big advantage is that lightning-fast zoning. And then you have Bahrain and Oman, who are playing to their own unique strengths in green energy and fiber proximity.
Let's zoom in on Saudi Arabia for a second. Their strategy is all about sheer scale. In places like the Sudair Energy Park, they're offering single power allocations of 1 to 2 gigawatts. That is just almost unheard of. And on top of that, in a place called Yanbu, they've already laid all the fiber infrastructure. They've basically created a just show up and plug in situation for these huge data centers.
Now, what's so interesting about what the UAE is doing is the exclusivity. They fenced off 4 gigantic substations only for data center use. Companies can get a first right of refusal. But here's the kicker. Those rights expire in the 3rd quarter of 2026. The clock is ticking, and that's creating this massive sense of urgency for anyone who wants a piece of the pie.
Qatar, on the other hand, is tackling that 3rd hurdle, bureaucracy, head-on. Their 2023 Data Center Economic Zone Decree, it's an absolute game changer. It promises a 45-day approval window from start to finish. In an industry where getting zoned can take up to 2 years, that is a wild competitive advantage.
Then you've got Bahrain and Oman, and they're carving out these really clever niches for themselves. Bahrain is future-proofing its power grid. Over 60% of their new power agreements now include solar and battery storage, which is a huge deal for tech giants who care about ESG. Meanwhile, Oman is just using its geography, offering land in Duqm that's less than 800 meters from those critical subsea cables. It's just a really smart play.
So with all these different strategies going on, the competition is just heating up like crazy, and it's leading to this intense scramble for the very best locations. We're talking about those rare pieces of land that take all 3 boxes of the trifecta.
And make no mistake about it, this is a finite resource. There are only so many sites on the planet that have the power, are right next to the fiber and are zoned correctly. And as you can imagine, those prime spots are getting snatched up fast. The window of opportunity is closing, and it is closing very, very quickly.
This quote from an industry insider really says it all. The pace is absolutely frantic. Forget about long negotiations and quarterly planning. The biggest deals are happening at lightning speed, because if you hesitate for even a second, your competitor is going to get there first.
And hey, this isn't just a theory. We already know that 4 of these prime, perfect parcels have already been reserved. And these weren't public deals. They were done off-market, very quietly, by major international players, including 2 huge U.S. hyperscalers. The race is real, and it's happening right now, mostly behind closed doors.
But moving this fast, with this much money on the line, well, that creates an enormous amount of risk. And that brings us to a final, pretty surprising twist. It's a really unconventional strategy that sophisticated investors are using to protect their money in this high-speed, high-stakes race.
It's called EE Gold, and the idea is actually pretty simple. While you're waiting for those multi-million-dollar construction permits to get finalized, which can still face delays, investors are putting a small slice of their capital, usually about 3 to 7%, into tokenized physical gold. It's their way of anchoring their investment in something stable while the high-tech chaos plays out.
You can see the strategy right here. So, while the huge majority of the capital, that big 95%, is all tied up in the land lease, that small 5% slice acts as a kind of safety net. It's a stable asset, and it's used to offset risks from things like currency fluctuations or unexpected regulatory delays during that supercritical construction phase. It's a very clever way to manage risk when things are moving this fast.
Which brings us right back to our final question. With nations playing to different strengths, with massive deals getting done in a matter of weeks, and investors using these novel strategies to manage insane amounts of risk, the race is well and truly on. The only question left is, who's going to assemble the trifecta the fastest, claim that multi-billion-dollar prize, and who is going to be left behind in the digital dust?